In today's video, we're going to be discussing the Montreal Canadiens. Obviously, their season's not going well, and we wanted to propose a few trades they may want to consider making. And that's coming up next. Hey everyone, welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. If this is your first time to the channel, thanks for stopping by. We cover all things NHL with all 31 teams with an unbiased opinion. So if you love hockey, hit that subscribe button now so you don't miss anything. Alright, diving into today's content, let's discuss the Montreal Canadiens. Obviously, it's no secret that things are not going well in Montreal, and their season's slowly falling apart bit by bit, game by game. Obviously, I had a few ideas in mind of trades they should consider making. It would probably help their teams as well as the teams that we're talking trade with. I think these are just speculation on my part. These are not actually from any confirmed sources of any of the NHL Insiders. These are just ideas on my part that I think would be good moves that the Habs should consider making a look at. Alright, first things first. Would the Edmonton Oilers be an excellent trading partner for the Montreal Canadiens? Here's my thoughts as to why I think this should be a good idea. Obviously, both teams are struggling right now. Both teams had high hopes to the season. I think it's safe to say that Edmonton was probably projected to be a little bit more of a Stanley Cup favorite than Montreal, but Montreal is still expected to do good things, be a playoff team, and certainly contend in the East. Obviously, neither scenario is working out, so oftentimes when you see two teams that are struggling, sometimes a change of scenery or a swap of players sometimes can be a good move. For obvious that the Montreal Canadiens need a top center iceman. That's by far their biggest need. Their defense certainly needs improvement as well, but obviously they've been having a hard time scoring and having a hard time keeping the puck out. They need puck-moving defensemen, and they need a top center. That's by far their two biggest needs. Now, the Oilers are obviously having struggles of their own, and a lot of it has to do with scoring as well. Not that they don't have the firepower. On paper, the Oilers look like a pretty solid team. They're just not getting production of some of their key guys that you would expect to be pitching in. So, for example, here's an idea. Maybe the Oilers, which has been rumored in the past, consider trading Ryan Nugent-Hopkins in his $6 million contract to the Habs, which gives them a top center, and in return, the Habs send Alex Galchenyuk, who is obviously in need of a change of scenery and has struggled and been inconsistent throughout his time in Montreal as well. It gives the Oilers a high-scoring winger, which they need. It gives the Habs a high-scoring center that they need. Obviously, Nugent-Hopkins hasn't quite lived up to the bill as a number one overall pick from a few years ago, but he's certainly no slouch and certainly considered a really good player. He's actually developed into a pretty decent two-way player, and on a team like Montreal, he could step in and he could be their top center. A guy like him playing with a guy like Drouin on the wing perhaps, or Pacioretty, would make a lot of sense. Or they could put Drouin in as a number two center and have a combo of Ryan Nugent-Hopkins and Jonathan Drouin as their top two. Now suddenly those lines look a little bit better. They could use a little bit of help on the wings, but they still, at that point, would still have Pacioretty, Gallagher, and maybe an Andrew Shaw. But Andrew Shaw's another name that's been floated around as trade bait as well. It's hard to say depending on what else they did. But either way, I think it'd be a good move. It certainly gives Galchenyuk a fresh start with the Oilers. Having him play with some guys like Draisaitl or McDavid, for example, might give him a big boost, and it could give Nugent-Hopkins a much bigger role on a Canadiens team that needs a top center. So in my opinion, it makes a lot of sense. What do you think? Do you think that move would make sense for both teams? And should we be getting Marc Bergevin and Peter Chiarelli on the phone here to make some talk, have some conversations about this? I think it's a good move. So leave a comment down below and let me know what you think. Now, another move that I think the Habs should consider making is I think they need to take a long, hard look at Captain Max Pacioretty. Not that he hasn't been a good soldier in Montreal, and he's certainly produced a lot of goals and been a big part of their team. But the fact of the matter is, he doesn't have a lot of time left on his very team-friendly contract. He's going to be getting a huge raise, and if the Montreal Canadiens end up in a position where they need to retool or rebuild, then is he going to want to stick around for that, first of all, so that you risk losing him in free agency? Secondly, even if he wants to stay, are you going to want to pay him the money he's going to be demanding on his next contract? I believe he's only making $4.5 million right now. You can pretty much bank on, with the current contracts that have been done recently, Pacioretty's going to be making up around $8.5 million, I think, on his next deal. Are the Habs going to want to pay that and have over $18 to $19 million locked up between him and Price for the next 7 or 8 years on a team that's retooling and don't really know where their future holds? I don't think so. So I think it's almost inevitable that the Habs are going to trade Pacioretty at some point. Now, it may not be in the very near future, but at some point before that contract expires, I can guarantee, in my opinion, I think it will happen. And it only makes good sense. Regardless of what they think of the player, they have to manage their players as assets, and Marc Bergevin is certainly good at that. So, I think at some point we need to take a look at the New York Rangers. I think are a good fit for Pacioretty, and I think in return they could probably pull another defenseman back, or possibly a combination of a defenseman and a winger. Now, I think if the Habs and Rangers pull off a deal, I think there would be multiple pieces going both ways. Now, as I've mentioned on this channel before, there have been actual trade rumors and trade buzz that are being talked about by actual real NHL sources that claim that this is something that has been discussed. Now, whether or not there's any truth to that or how far it went, no one will really ever know unless something gets pulled off. But keeping that in mind, a captain for captain trade, getting Ryan McDonash back to Montreal where he belonged in the first place, for Max Pacioretty, who is going to be demanding big bucks. The Rangers can afford to pay him because they're soon going to have Rick Nash off their books, and he's making a big salary. So that money, the Rick Nash money, could help pay for Pacioretty. The Habs can get McDonash back, and then I think you're also going to have to look at some other pieces involved, because I don't think that's a straight up one-for-one deal that happens. But I think the Habs and Rangers each have some other pieces that, I know that the Rangers also really like Andrew Shaw. So maybe Pacioretty and Shaw go together. Not sure what else comes back with McDonash. Maybe a Chris Kreider. Maybe a Matt Zuccarello. I think that would be a good deal. If you could look at a deal of Pacioretty and Shaw for McDonash and Zuccarello, that to me makes a lot of sense. However, I'm not sure at this point. The Rangers have been doing very well. They obviously got off to a terrible start, but have fixed things and turned things around. So they might be a little bit more leery of making a move and messing with things right now. But at the same time, picking up players like Pacioretty and Shaw, really, could you argue that Pacioretty is an upgrade over Zuccarello? I think you can. Could you argue that, obviously, that losing McDonash would be a big blow to them? And that's something that they're going to have, a hard time doing. But even if it's not McDonash, maybe they could pry Brady Shea out of New York. I don't know. I know the Rangers would probably be willing to part with Brendan Smith at this point. He hasn't had a great year, and they're probably regretting that new contract they gave him. But obviously, that's probably not a player the Habs want. So the only problem with this deal is that the Rangers are winning now. So they're probably going to want to hold off on this. But if things start to slide for the Rangers, I think this could be a very interesting move for both these clubs and kind of help really transform both clubs and their whole face of their franchise and give both of them a fresh start. The last thing I want to discuss about the Montreal Canadiens is whether or not they should trade Carey Price. It seems to be a fairly hot topic if you look around the sports headlines around the various outlets of news around the internet, and even here on YouTube there's a fair bit of videos I've come across where that's been a point of discussion. And personally, this is a trade I'm going to propose that the Habs don't do. Unless Carey Price goes to Marc Bergevin and says, I want out, I would not do it. As much as he's had a bad season, he's had some injury problems, at this point he's your franchise player. You just committed to him for a mega contract, and I don't think that he's not a player that can be very easily replaced. When goaltending is probably the toughest position to get an elite premium player at. You have one, you need to hang on to him. Obviously, he can bounce back, and he can get his game back, I'm sure. He's certainly not going to lose his skills overnight like it appeared as though he might have done earlier this season. So, if, in your opinion, as a Habs fan, or as a hockey fan, should the Habs trade Carey Price? Leave me a comment down below and let me know if you think the answer is yes or no. Personally, I'm going to go ahead with no for right now. Unless he asks to be traded, I would not make the move. If you like this video, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you leave a comment. Let me know what you think about these ideas for trades for the Montreal Canadiens. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button in the middle of your screen so you can keep watching Top Shelf Hockey.